Hello folks, and welcome to Telling Tinder Tales, the show where people tell their interesting dating stories with me, Chris O'Neill.
And me, Thomasin Lockwood.
On today's show, we have 3 guests calling in from different locations to tell their tales, and then we'll get to ask them some questions about it.
So Thomasin, who have we got calling in today?
So, starting off, we have Bondy, a musician. Our podcast is audio only. You can't see this, but right now he is really rocking a fabulous blanket fort. He tells me for audio reasons, but I think he just likes to have a bit of fun. Bondy, say hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Where are you calling from besides the blanket fort?
So right now I'm actually calling from Leeds, which is where I work, but I live in London. I grew up in Kansas in the US, but my family comes from Mexico. So when people ask, I tend to these days tell people Mexican for reasons.
We also have Lauren, the author of a book about something serious, I think. Hello, Lauren.
Hey there.
Where are you calling from, and what's the story on the book?
Yeah, so I'm calling from a little bit north of San Francisco, California, not far from where I grew up in Santa Cruz, California, by the beach, living a paradise over here. And yeah, I wrote a book about dating because I went on over 200 dates and it was ridiculous.
Okay, that's worrying and impressive at the one time.
I love that. Looking for something serious indeed. And finally, we have Ben, another writer and an actor as well. In fact, I first met Ben on the set of a sci-fi film. Hi, Ben.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Where are you calling in from, Ben?
I'm calling in from jolly old London.
That's its official title.
What parts were you guys playing in the movie?
Well, I was playing a forensics doctor, while Thomasin was playing the kind of no-nonsense inspector. And we were investigating, what was it, robots or something?
No, kind of. It's called the twin theory, but I just remember your scene where we had to, I don't know why we had to do so many takes of this. It was something with the lighting, but you had to keep bursting through the door going, I've got it, I've got the answer, and then running off.
Yep. Yeah, it still to this day holds one of the best directions I've ever received, which is, that was a great take, Ben, but can you do it a little less like an arsehole?
I remember that. I forgot.
Which holds a special place in my heart now.
Wow. You know what? I get told that a lot on dates. So, speaking of which, I cannot wait to hear our Tinder tales, our tales of hookups, romance, or what have you. I think we should get started. So, let's hear it from Bondy. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Sure. So my Tinder tale comes from Hinge from a couple of years ago when I had moved to the UK from Australia where I was living. And at the time, I was living with my ex-partner, which I would not recommend necessarily, but for various logistical and, I'll be frank, visa reasons, it was necessary. And I was dating, as was my ex, and what we found was the men that she was seeing were much more okay with the fact that she was still living with an ex-partner, and some of the women that I was seeing a little bit less so. I'm someone who wanted to be kind of forthright with it rather than people finding out when we're in person. Oh, by the way, who's your flatmate? Oh, well, it's my ex. I felt like that was something that I would want to kind of foreground when making these kinds of connections. The story that I'm here to share was about a person that I met who was in a kind of similar situation, also living with an ex. I wasn't really interested in anything too long-term or too serious, really. It was just kind of exploring what the people of Leeds, maybe where I was living, had to offer. The person that I ended up meeting a couple of times, who we kind of developed a little bit of a connection with, and a couple of weeks go by, we met up a couple of times and we chatted, and this third week into this kind of a little fling, my flatmate / ex-partner went traveling, so I said, okay, maybe you'd like to come over, and we hung out, and this person ended up spending the night, and then the next day I was preparing to go for some work travel of my own. I was going to go to Paris, where I had a couple of colleagues that were there waiting for me, and then after that I was going to go back to Kansas, where I'm originally from, to see my family. So I decided that maybe this was a good natural kind of a stopping point, which is what I discussed the next day. I said, this has been fun. It was really lovely to meet you, but I think maybe it's best if we kind of call it here and then maybe go our separate ways. I'm kind of awkward when dealing with some of the stuff, so I thought, oh well, this is maybe like a mature way to handle this, and we decided, okay, great, we'll go our separate ways. So the next day, I arrived in Paris, where I met my two colleagues, Laura and Yarim. Laura asked to see my dating profile. Laura describes herself as someone who is an expert, almost like she views it as a competitive sport. And she wanted to see what my profile looked like. And she's like, if you want to meet French people, let me change your profile up a little bit. So she changed some of my pictures and she wrote a couple of prompts, one of which was in French. And she explained to me that it's like a chat up line, like an idiom. It essentially translates to, I don't care what we do, as long as we cuddle afterwards. It's like a very forward, way more forward than I would ever be in English, let alone in a language I don't speak, because I do not speak French. The next day, however, when I opened up the app, I saw that this person that I had been seeing in Leeds, that I thought I had so maturely and so grown-uply cut things off with, had unmatched me and had blocked me on the communication app that we had been messaging on. And I felt like an absolute scumbag. Because I guess from their perspective, it was, hey, yeah, this has been really fun. I don't think it's going to be working out. And then just immediately I go to France and change this thing to like, let's just, I don't know, go wild. So that was, and this is true, the last time that I've used the dating apps, because I felt like such a terrible person as a result of that I was like, okay, maybe this isn't for me. And that is my Tinder tale.
Oh,
okay, that's sweet.
Bondy.
Yeah.
I think you know what? I really do understand that guilt. So I've talked about this a bit on the podcast already. I used the apps for the first time ever in September last year. And when someone first, I don't know if people are aware, but on Hinge, you can give someone a rose. And if you give someone a rose, you usually have to pay for it because there are like, upscale paid features of these apps. And the first time someone had given me a rose, I felt guilty because even though I didn't want to match with them, I realized, oh, he spent money on a rose to say hi to me. So the best I can do is match him, say, hi, sorry, I really appreciate it, but like, I just don't think we're compatible because you're looking for this, I'm looking for this, but thanks anyway and good luck to you. And he was like, what are you doing? What are you? That's weird. And I found I've really struggled with the guilt of, I guess, just how visible everything is. So I really do. I feel for you, Bondy. I think my question is, were you amicable with your ex? How was the living situation?
We were, together, but it wasn't really like a marriage as such, maybe. And then we decided to separate. But there was a bit of a cost of living crisis going on in 2022 in the UK. So we just ended up staying together for a couple of weeks, which turned into a couple of months, which turned into a couple of years. And now we have finally resolved that living situation. But yeah, it was an interesting time to be dating. I'll say that.
Honestly, Bondy's doing marriage like they did in the 17th century. We're doing it for convenience. And
there you go.
And if there's romance in it, then fine. Chris, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I suppose my question to Bondy is, did you get any luck in France afterwards?
That's the worst part, I guess, of all this. No, not at all. Nope. It was just a whole doomed affair, I think, but funny in hindsight for me, at least.
All right, fair enough. Okay.
We'd love to open up the floor to our other guests. Ben, did you have any remarks, thoughts, questions?
I mean, it sounds like you had more success on dating apps than I've ever had. So, unfortunately, I can only look up to you and say, well done.
No, I'm looking forward to hearing your story now, Ben.
And Lauren, any thoughts, remarks, questions?
I mean, I just think that your decision to leave the apps back then forever and never come back was the right one. So I applaud you for that.
Right. Harsh but true.
That's coming from an expert. She wrote the book on it.
Literally written a book on it. And actually, I have to be nosy here, Bondy. Are you currently in a relationship?
No.
I just wondered if you'd had any success in real life, as they say.
Yeah, I just think why burden someone else with all of the, we used to call it, now we call it trauma, but in the past we called it baggage because, it's your baggage. You deal with that. So for me, I'll just keep holding on to my bags and not bothering people on the apps or in a bar or anything like that. So yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. That's fair enough. Okay. So I think it's time we moved on to Lauren. So Lauren, have you a tale to tell, and would you like to share it with us, please?
Yes, I would. So my Tinder tale involves a rather unconventional place to find love, reddit.com.
Oh.
So yeah, let me back up and say how I got there. So as I mentioned in my intro, I went on a lot of dates. Like, I didn't keep count, but easily over 200, because I was the type of person that since I was a teenager, I was like, I want to find love. That is my biggest life dream. So I was a very early adopter of the dating apps. Like, I was on Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, Coffee Meets Bagel, apps you've never heard of. So I did a lot of dating, and it was hugely disappointing and frustrating for most of it, I will be honest. And so fast forward to the end of my dating journey, which was honestly about 10 years in. I'd used the apps for like a really long time. So this was a few years ago. And Tinder is involved here because near the end of my journey, I met a guy on Tinder. And it seemed like it was going to go really well. He really liked me. And over the course of a month or two, I realized that he was totally love bombing me, which I don't know if you guys are familiar, kind of like onslaught of praise and then slow pull away. So at that time, I was 32. I had just gotten love bombed by some random guy on Tinder. I was extremely devastated. So I quit the apps. It was probably like time number 8 of quitting them, but I was final this time. And I just kind of went on living my life for a few months. And then this weird thing started to happen where previous matches from my past were like popping up, either texting or Google chat, one of them. And they were kind of trying to reconnect. And all 3 or 4 of them were like inappropriately oversharing to me about unsavory topics, like about how they felt about me or their childhood trauma. And it was weird. And the fact that they all happened in this bunch of time, I was like, you know where I'm going to go to talk about this? Reddit. So I went and I posted on the Dating Over 30 subreddit, which is somewhere that I spent time just, commiserating with people my age about how dating was terrible. So I posted this thread on there. I called it the oversharing phenomenon. And my post got really popular, like surprisingly. People were commenting on it and saying, wow, this happens to me. Like, what is wrong with people? And from that post, I got 2 DMs that altered the course of my life. The first one's related to my book. So this guy DMs me and he's like, I think your writing is so funny. Do you have any other writing somewhere? And I sent him a link to my Medium page, just not really thinking anything of it. And he was like, wow, I've actually run into your writing before organically. And I was like, what? Like, I'm not a famous writer at all. But he said, yeah, I really like what you have to say. You should write a book. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to do it, but like, that's a lot of work. I don't know what I would do. And he just like kept kind of encouraging me. And I said, okay. A random guy from Texas, like, sure, I'm going to listen to you. And so I wrote a book outline. I called my sister and I said, you know what? Like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to commit. I'm going to write a book. And she put me in contact with someone who'd written one. I basically, long story short, I like found an editor, had a book idea within 24 hours. It was awesome. And the second DM, this kind of ties together. I'll tie it together at the end. The second DM was from my now husband, who had commented on my post, just something about healthy boundaries. And he said he just felt this inexplicable urge to reach out to me. And that's very out of character for him. He is like not a DMer. He doesn't really do social media, but he's like, I just had to talk to you more. So he DM'd me. He wasn't even hitting on me. He just said, hey, I really liked what you had to say. Like, I really wish you luck out there in the dating world. And I was like, who is this guy? Like because I'm so used to people being creeps on Reddit or wherever. And he slid into my DMs, no hitting on me. So I responded back and we kind of got to chatting. And it turned out that he lived in the neighboring town next to mine. So he lived 10 minutes away from me on Reddit, this global website.
That's crazy.
And I was like, what are the chances? This is crazy. And so after a little bit of polite back and forth, he finally said, hey, would you want to go out and get coffee sometime? And he sent me a selfie and he told me he had a little sister. So he knew that men on the internet could be creepy, but he was like, I am a real person. We'll go to a public place. And I was like, you know what? All right. I'm going to take this serendipitous chance. Yeah. And so the next day we met up for coffee in San Francisco and he was a real person. He was totally normal. He was a little nervous, which is really sweet because I was not nervous at all because this was date like 246. But it was so lovely. He was such a gentleman, and we just kept seeing each other from there. And we got married about 6 months ago, which was so good. And yeah, it was just so fascinating the way that I had dated, like my life depended on it for 10 years, and then the moment that I finally committed to like doing my life dream of writing a book, like within 24 hours, the universe was like, husband unlocked. And I was like, this is so wild.
Spoken like a true Redditor.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that is an awesomely uplifting story, in stark contrast to Bondy's, but nevertheless an awesomely uplifting story. Well done. Yeah, I'm sort of mesmerised by it. I'm hard-pressed to come up with a question. Thomasin, have you any questions?
When he first DM'd you, did he end it with, I don't care what we do as long as we cuddle afterwards?
Luckily, no.
Do you have like the screenshot? Do you remember the first sort of words exchange? Like when you first date someone, you keep like the cute texts or like love letters,
yes.
But you have that on your Reddit?
So, you know what's so annoying is that Reddit had a glitch and deleted the text. I have screenshots, but even better, my husband actually printed out the screenshots and like made a little book of our whole Reddit conversation. So cute.
A follow-up question to that. What was his name on Reddit? Because some people have some really outlandish names on Reddit. No one's putting their full name on Reddit. So I hope it was not something like Arse Raptor or something crazy, like on top of like these really cute messages.
No, it was not like butt cheek mustard or anything like that. It was something. It was like a video game character. I didn't know what it meant, but it was like innocuous. I was like, okay, you seem normal.
Yeah.
Actually, I do have a question. You went on all those other dates, Lauren, and they weren't in and of themselves productive. But do you think you could have got to where you got to without all that? Or was it essential?
No, that's such a good question. I thought a lot about this. And I think no, I don't think I would have gotten where I got because all of those dates, like though they made me cry on the floor at times, like they taught me so many lessons about my self-worth and my values and like what boundaries, all of that. So looking back, I'm so grateful for them because I got a husband and a book out of them. So I wouldn't change a thing.
I'm immensely relieved that you got the sequence right there. A husband and a book rather than a book and a husband. Ben, have you any questions?
I mean, I'm impressed that you were able to keep count of so many dates. I just like the idea of every time a guy sits down in front of you, you just get like a little clicker and just go, number 97. Like, how did you keep track?
To be honest, I didn't keep complete track, but I just like did a couple number guesses in my head of just like, especially during 2020, like I was doing a lot of video dates. So I just like kind of thought, I was like, if I'm doing 3 dates a week and I've been dating for 7 years, like I looked at it and I was like, this is easily above 200. Maybe if I knew the real number, it might be terrifying. So I don't think too hard about it.
There's actually another digit at the end of that number that you just don't you want to hide away.
All right, very good. Bondy, have you a question for Lauren?
I mean, I'm fascinated by the story as someone who uses Reddit quite a bit but never posts. I'm just a lurker incarnate, and so this is kind of the opposite of the fear of like messaging people or commenting on Reddit posts that you'll just get a bunch of strangers coming after you. And I'm curious, were there any other comments from that thread that you posted that really stood out in your memory that stuck with you all these years later?
It's a good question. It's funny. I went back and referenced the thread recently because I shared it with someone. And most of the comments were just about women relating to my experience with men oversharing to them, which I was like, do men need more friends? Like, what's going on? So, I mean, that's kind of the only thing that kind of stood out. But then, yeah.
Chris is nodding very enthusiastically.
So that was my takeaway from that thread, is that men need more friends to overshare to instead of women they're dating.
Or just start a thread on Reddit.
Or not dating in your case.
Yeah, or not dating.
Yeah. That's well done. Thank you, Lauren.
Without further ado, let's bring it on to our final guest for today. Ben, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours to tell us your tale.
Thank you. Well, as I've kind of already said, dating apps, they've never really worked for me. And when I was in my early 20s, I'd been out of a relationship for a while. It was starting to impact me for a little bit, knocking my confidence. I wasn't getting anywhere with any of them, Tinder, or I remember another one called Lovu.
Never heard of that.
Not seeing any recognition in anyone's faces. Yeah, there's a reason for that. But a friend of mine said, look, why don't you just try and build up your confidence? Why don't you try a Kink app? So I was like, okay, you know what? I like to think of myself as a pretty open-minded kind of guy. Let's give this a go. And so I find this Kink app simply called Kinked.
Wow.
So I set up my profile, kind of what I'm looking for. And lo and behold, within a day, I get a match. And this pretty attractive woman is messaging me. And, I'm in my early 20s. This slightly older, very attractive, probably much more experienced woman is talking to me. I'm on cloud 9. So it didn't really bother me that the messages were a bit kind of sterile. They were very much, hey, are your pictures real? That kind of background check sort of thing. But, she messaged me saying, would love to meet up. Here's a cafe near my place. So I'm thinking, hey, this is going to be spicy. She's planning ahead. This quote unquote date was the least spiciest meetup I've ever been to. It was like this awkward combination of job interview and medical exam. She's asking me about my sexual history, like when I started, what I was into, all of these kind of really awkward questions. And I'm sat there not being able to get a word in edgeways. And it gets to a point where she actually brings out a little notepad and pen and starts making notes of my answers. And it gets to a point where I just start getting a bit bored. Until she asked me one specific question, which is, have you ever been on a cross before and would you like to? And I'm thinking, is she trying to crucify me? So, all of a sudden, Mel Gibson on a cross is coming into my head, and I'm thinking, it's never really been something I've thought about. And immediately after I left, I'm thinking, I wish I should have said yes, because that would have been the perfect time to start singing Always Look on the Bright Side of Life.
Yes, we love a Monty Python reference.
But that wasn't even the last question. The last question that I've never run for my life before, but this next bit came very close. And she asked me, when was the last time you saw your urologist? And I'm early 20s, so I never really had an excuse. So I said, well, I've not really seen one. And then she pulls out this little silver contraption thingy.
Oh.
I'm going, oh, well, what's that? And she goes, oh, it's a urethra stretcher.
Oh.
And she's showing me how it works. She's showing me the extent it can go to. And I'm there cross-legged. I'm sat there thinking anyone who can withstand this is, they should be out with the special forces, because there is no manner of torture. There is no enemy out there that can do to these people what they enjoy doing to themselves. And so that was when I am looking at the exits. That is when I'm going, you know what? I don't think this is right for me. And so that is my experience on the app known as Kink.
Thank you. Wow. Our producer is clapping right now. I think that was...
Speechless.
Yeah. You're mimicking what I was doing on the date. That's brilliant. I didn't know you were there.
And it's not a great feat of imagination if you're a man to, no.
That's the rest of this podcast,
no,
by the way, just Chris making those uncomfortable sounds. we'll just fade out after 10 minutes. Enjoy.
It was not, I suppose, Thomasin, have you a question for
I mean,
Ben?
first of all, like...
I think Chris needs to recover for a bit.
Need to have a little a sniff of what's the thing?
Smelling salts.
Smelling salts. Yeah.
Well, first of all, these apps, Lovoo, Kinked. Ben, I think the reason why you're not having luck is because nobody else are on these apps except you. It's just you. There's nothing to swipe. Like, I'm so... I will say, without saying too much, I mean, I do find that... So I think, like, the latest kind of, like, alternative app is Field, which I've never been on. But I have had friends tell me, like, sometimes, like, the seedier... Not the seedier, but, like, the more kind of overtly sexual the app is, like, the more awkward the date. I think that this is very good proof to that theory. And what's mad to me is that you weren't even in a pub. You were in a cafe. Like, my question is, how big or, like, quiet was the cafe? Like, are people around you when she gets out the little instrument? Like, can people see?
Oh, no, we were kind of in this little cornered booth. So, you know, my escape options were limited. And I think there was, like... 2-3 other people there.
So could they hear?
If you include the waitress? No. Oh, no. Absolutely. Otherwise, I'd be like trying to wink for help.
That to me is...
blinking twice very aggressively.
That to me is even scarier, though, because it's the idea that maybe she's asking you in a very lowered voice. Like, when was the last time you saw your urologist?
Have you ever wanted to be on a cross? It's like,
Although maybe shouting it wouldn't be great either. Like, you're in the Starbucks and you're like, have you ever done this? Like...
Yeah. I'm back to being speechless. Sorry. I suppose, was that the only date you went on from that app?
It wasn't actually, but I've never actually hooked up with someone. I have actually made friends from that app, but never anything more. So there's a little bit of a success from there.
Was it like a cross anonymous group? Like, like have you also gone through this strange date with this strange date? Yeah, me too. Should we watch Monty Python?
Yeah, we're all we all meet up once a week. None of us can watch Passion of the Christ anymore. It's just ruined.
An entirely new meaning to the term CrossFit. But anyway.
Bondy, do you have any remarks, questions?
Remarks in the sense that I didn't think anyone else had a crucifixion kink. No, I'm just kidding. That's diabolical. That's an insane thing to just bring up in casual conversation. It didn't happen in person. This is the conversations you'd had, like, just in the messages. I would be convinced this was AI generated. Like, it's so many strange prompts one after another. And I guess, the question that I would have would be like, was there anything in that profile that would indicate that this was like an unlicensed urologist or someone who really has something specific that they're looking for?
I'll be honest, I wasn't really fussed about looking through their profile. I saw the pictures and I was just like, let's go. And I learned a valuable lesson that day.
Incredible.
Terms and conditions apply.
Wow.
Never hear that term again.
Lauren, any questions, anything to add?
Yeah, so you know how sometimes you can go on a date and like you think it's the most insane unhinged date ever, and then the person follows up. They're like, "I had so much fun. Do you want to do this again?" Did she follow up after the date?
Absolutely not. I think she was picking up the vibes I was not putting down. I think by my reaction of the urethra stretcher, he got the idea that, mate, I don't think this guy is into it, actually.
Wow.
That's good.
Did she like offer the floor to you? Was it like, because you said you couldn't get a word in edgeways. Was there ever opportunities for you to be like, oh,
No.
this is... No.
No, not at all. It was genuinely just question after question after question. And this went on for like, I'm going to say like 25, maybe even 30 minutes of just non-stop bombardment of questions. And yeah, I wasn't getting great vibes. Because I know a thing or two, consent is important in that field. And, you know, I need to be able to get a word in edgeways if I'm going up on next to Monty Python.
Like you're on the cross and she's still talking.
No. I have never heard a circumstance where the term inquisition was more appropriate.
Amazing.
Oh, wow. These have been fascinating, as again, worrying stories in at least some circumstances, yes. So, yeah, thank you very much. Thomasin, have you anything to say before we wind up?
Yes, just thank you so much for listening. If whatever platform you're listening on, give us a follow, a like, a subscribe, all of that, as well as a review for an up-and-coming podcast. Reviews really make a difference to our algorithm and our visibility. If you give us 5 stars, I will slide into your DMs on Reddit and maybe even marry you. If you give us 1 star, I will give you a reason to visit your urologist. Oh. That might be my toughest threat yet.
I think you've excelled yourself with the level of physical threat and long-term injury you have outlined there.
That's a new one. That's I'm flying a bit close to the sun with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you want to plug, please? We'll start with you, Bondy. Do you have anything you want to plug or whatever? We'll add the details in the show notes.
Thanks so much for having me on. The band that I was in called Parallel Path is available to stream on Spotify, Apple Music, if you want to listen to that. I also wrote a book about TikTok, actually, but it's like an academic textbook, so probably not as interesting or as fun as 200 Tinder Tales. But yeah, that book is available at Polity Press if you're a
What's it called? What's it called?
The book is called TikTok, Creativity and Culture in Short Video. And yeah, this has been a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on. It's lovely to meet all of you and hear your stories.
Very good. And Lauren, have you anything to plug apart from your book? You better give us the title again and we'll put a link to it. I presume it's on Amazon?
Yep, it's on Amazon. It's called Looking for Something Serious by Lauren Josephine. And then also my Instagram, the same name, Looking for Something Serious. I give dating advice and stuff like that.
Impressive. Excellent. Thank you very much. Ben, have you anything you want to plug or what's the story?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Ben Mansbridge Actor. I've actually got a play going up to Edinburgh from the 1st to the 8th called Bloody Influences. And you can find more information on Insta at Daisy_BeautyMe, where you can follow the main character. And you can follow my brand new production company, Little Nugget Pictures, on there, where we will soon be having some exciting news.
Fab. I've seen Bloody Influencers, by the way. It's fantastic. Please check it out if you're at Edinburgh Fringe.
So thank you all very much for taking part in what has been an interesting and occasionally extraordinarily frightening episode. And we're bringing this show to the Edinburgh Fringe as well. So we might have Ben on to tell his story in front of a live audience, just to really put the fear of God in everybody.
Cannot wait.
I'll bring props.
Yeah.
Well, that was what I was going to suggest. You know?
Give us a follow on at Telling Tinder Tales on Instagram, TikTok for more dates for that.
And actually, we're on Reddit as well, but don't tell anybody.
And Kinked.
Okay. So thank you very much. No, we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not. No. And say goodbye, folks.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Telling Tinder Tales is hosted and produced by me, Chris O'Neill, and Thomasin Lockwood. Produced and edited by Lucy Regan, with music by Kinkas Moreira. It's a Jester's Comedy Dublin production and is no way affiliated with or endorsed by Tinder. If you have a story to tell, please get in touch. Details are in the show notes. And if you like us, instead of swiping right, follow us on Instagram and or TikTok at Telling Tinder Tales.